Running backs are special players.
15, 10, 5, 99 yards!
Athletic freaks that can bulldoze defenders, hurdle them, or just plain outrun them. They are brought to the league for one reason: scoring touchdowns. In the entire history of professional football, just 10 men have ever scored over 100 rushing touchdowns in their careers and gained entry to the 100 TD club. From dominating power backs to electrifying dual-threat playmakers, each guy has done it their way. We're looking at every back who made the list, starting with the founding member and arguably the best running back ever. Jim Brown became the first member of this elite club in 1965, and he did it in a way that perfectly encapsulated his career by being completely unstoppable. In just 9 seasons, Brown redefined what was possible at the running back position, crossing the century mark before walking away from the game at his absolute peak. In an era when defenders could do practically anything to stop a runner, no one could contain him. He made the Pro Bowl every single season of his career, and he was first-team All-Pro 8 times. He won NFL MVP honors 3 times, and simply put, the league had never seen anything like him before. By the time he retired at age 29, Brown had racked up 106 rushing touchdowns, a record that would stand for 2 decades. He averaged over 100 yards per game for his entire career, a mark that still hasn't been matched. Perhaps most telling is that nearly 60 years after his final carry, many football historians and analysts still consider Jim Brown the greatest player to ever step on an NFL field, regardless of position. We had to wait a while to see another back join the club, but John Riggins did it in a way that perfectly matched his bruising style. The Diesel plowed his way across the goal line for his 100th score in 1985, putting an exclamation point on one of football's most remarkable late-career resurgences. Riggins had an insane playoff campaign in 1982 with 136 carries in just 4 games. Then, he saved his best football for what should have been the twilight of his career. In 1983, at age 34, he led the league with 24 rushing touchdowns. He followed that up the next season with another league-leading 14 scores, proving his renaissance was no fluke. His defining moment came in Super Bowl 17 with Washington facing 4th and 1 late in the 4th quarter against Miami's Killer Bees defense. Riggins broke free for a 43-yard touchdown run that secured Washington's first Super Bowl victory. That run, with Riggins brushing off defenders like they were practice dummies, embodied everything that made him special: power, determination, and a flair for the dramatic. By the time he retired, Riggins had amassed 104 rushing touchdowns, cementing his legacy as one of football's greatest power runners. But the next guy on the list, he could be the best. A year after Riggins joined the club, Walter Payton became its 3rd member, bringing his own unmistakable style. Sweetness, danced around defenders, jumped over them, and when necessary, ran straight through them. His never-say-die style led to some of the craziest highlights in NFL history, like the run against the Chiefs when he literally could not be stopped. While other backs might specialize in power or speed, he could do it all. He even threw his own fair share of touchdowns. Despite facing stacked boxes for most of his career on often mediocre Bears teams, Payton kept producing, kept scoring, and kept rewriting record books. By the time he retired, he had accumulated 110 rushing touchdowns, breaking Jim Brown's career record along the way. But Payton also brought an artistry to the running back position that had never been seen before. His combination of grace and grit, along with his legendary work ethic, exemplified by his grueling hill training sessions, created a template for every back who followed. To this day, the NFL's Man of the Year award bears his name, a testament to his impact both on and off the field. We just covered 3 legends breaking 100 touchdowns in rushing, but think about the legends who never got there. Barry Sanders, perhaps the most electric runner in NFL history, fell just 1 touchdown short. Jerome the Bus Bettis, who steamrolled defenders for 13 seasons, couldn't reach it. Eric Dickerson, who still holds the single-season rushing record, didn't make it. Even Frank Gore, who played 16 seasons at running back, never crossed that threshold. Our next player would face plenty of challenges along the way to his membership. The 100 Touchdown Club's next member arrived in 1995, and Marcus Allen's path there was unlike any other. After dominating the first half of his career with the Raiders, including an MVP season and one of the greatest Super Bowl runs ever, Allen found himself inexplicably benched by Al Davis. But what happened next only added to his legend. Allen responded to adversity by reinventing himself with the Kansas City Chiefs. He transformed from a feature back into one of football's greatest goal line and short yardage specialists. Most running backs were finished by age 30. But Allen proved especially lethal inside the 20-yard line well into his mid-30s. His instincts near the goal line were unmatched. He seemed to know exactly where the hole would be before it appeared. By the time he crossed the century mark, Allen had built one of football's greatest second acts. He finished with 123 rushing touchdowns, proving that neither age nor spite could stop his uncanny nose for the end zone. In 1996, Emmitt Smith joined the 100 touchdown club in a way that perfectly embodied his career by making the extraordinary look routine. What set Smith's achievement apart was its efficiency. He reached the mark in just his 7th season, the fastest anyone had ever done it. Behind the NFL's greatest offensive line, Smith pretty much shattered the entire record book. While guys like Barry Sanders might have been more spectacular, Smith's greatness lay in his consistency and durability. Game after game, season after season, he found ways to reach the end zone. His running style was about patience, vision, and an uncanny ability to stay on his feet through contact. He turned the art of finding the end zone into a science, understanding exactly when to hit the hole and how to follow his blockers. By the time he hung up his cleats, Smith had pushed the rushing touchdown record into territory that seemed unreachable, finishing with 164 scores on the ground. Even as his speed diminished in later years, Smith's ability to find the end zone never wavered. When you think of the best runners to ever play football, the list has to include Marshall Faulk. He reached the century mark in 2004 against Tampa Bay, but by then, he was far from the force of nature who had revolutionized the running back position just a few years earlier. Rewind a few years though, and his path to 100 touchdowns tells the story of perhaps the most complete offensive weapon the NFL has ever seen. Between 1998 and 2001, Faulk redefined the position. Anyone who plays Madden could tell you that he was the best player in the league, rated 99 every season without fail. It's easy to see why. In that 4-season span, he had 9,000 yards from scrimmage and 69 total touchdowns, numbers that seem impossible even today's pass-heavy era. He was the engine of the greatest show on turf, equally dangerous taking a handoff as he was splitting out wide as a receiver. In 2000, he became the first player to gain 2,000 yards from scrimmage in 4 consecutive seasons, and only the second ever to reach 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in a single season. What made Faulk special was his mastery of every aspect of the position. He could run between the tackles, catch passes downfield, and pick up blitzes with equal skill. When he finally crossed the 100 touchdown threshold, he was already hobbled by knee injuries, but that didn't diminish what he'd accomplished in his prime. For those 4 magical seasons, Faulk played the position at a level that no one before or since has matched. The only guy who came close? The next guy on our list. But before we move on, give us a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. In 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson smashed down the door to the 100 rushing touchdown club with a season for the ages. He reached the mark in just his 6th season, the fastest player ever to do it, and a record that will probably never be broken. But it was how he did it that left us in awe, setting the single-season touchdown record with 28 rushing scores and 31 total touchdowns. The most remarkable part? He set this seemingly unbreakable record in just 14 games. His milestone-setting performance came in Week 14 against Kansas City, where he rushed for 199 yards and 2 touchdowns, adding another exclamation point to what might be the greatest individual season by a running back in NFL history. Tomlinson combined the best attributes of the greats who came before him: the vision of Smith, the receiving ability of Faulk, and the nose for the end zone that all the legends possessed. By the time he retired, he had amassed 145 rushing touchdowns, second only to Smith on the all-time list. But it was that 2006 season where he seemed to score at will that stands as his masterpiece, a display of offensive dominance that may never be matched. As we leave LT behind, we also leave the peak running back era behind. From this point in history and onward, there are only a few true do-it-all workhorse backs that would play in the league. Today's modern game simply isn't built for running backs to accumulate these kind of numbers anymore. Reaching 100 rushing touchdowns seems more daunting than ever. Ezekiel Elliott is the closest active player with 73 touchdowns, but he's well past his prime and seeing diminished playing time. Alvin Kamara is at 60, but hasn't reached double-digit rushing touchdowns in a season since 2020. Even Saquon Barkley, despite his immense talent, has yet to break 50 touchdowns, and his injury history makes the path to 100 seem like a distant dream. Many teams are trying to recreate workhorse running back production using committees, but all true football fans know that you don't just replace a Clydesdale with a couple of Shetland ponies. Our next player on the list would be one of the few workhorses left in the 2000s. Shaun Alexander's entry into the 100 touchdown club in 2007 carries a bittersweet quality that encapsulates the cruel nature of the running back position. He reached the milestone in the final game of the season against Atlanta, a 44-41 loss that would turn out to be more significant than anyone realized at the time. That touchdown would be Alexander's last in the NFL. Just 2 seasons earlier, Alexander had put together one of the greatest rushing campaigns ever, scoring 27 touchdowns and earning NFL MVP honors while leading Seattle to their first Super Bowl appearance. Running behind the left side of Walter Jones and Steve Hutchinson, Alexander made scoring look effortless. His patient running style and nose for the end zone had become Seattle's greatest weapon. But his story is a reminder of the fragility of NFL greatness, especially at running back. After crossing the 100 touchdown threshold, Alexander's career ended abruptly. Still, his achievements stand the test of time. In his prime, few runners were more automatic near the goal line, and his 100 rushing touchdowns, even if he never added to that total, represent one of the most efficient scoring careers in NFL history. Adrian Peterson reached 100 touchdowns in 2017, adding another milestone to a career defined by sheer dominance. In his prime, Peterson was perhaps the most terrifying sight in football, a runner who combined raw power and breakaway speed in a way that hadn't been seen since Jim Brown. Basically, he should have been illegal. Just look at how he ran over and trampled players as if they were crash test dummies. Peterson ran with a violence that brought back memories of Earl Campbell, but could also outrun defensive backs in the open field. In 2012, he put together one of the most remarkable seasons in NFL history, rushing for 2,097 yards and winning NFL MVP just months after a devastating knee injury. He remains the last non-quarterback to win the award, a testament to how thoroughly he dominated the league. During his peak years, opposing defenses would stack 8 or 9 men in the box, knowing exactly what was coming and still couldn't stop him. He didn't need perfect blocking or creative play calling. He just needed the ball in his hands. In many ways, he was reminiscent of the most recent member of the club. This season, Derrick Henry achieved the milestone in a way that perfectly captures his unique career. At age 30, when most running backs are well past their prime, Henry is leading the NFL in rushing for the third time in his career, putting together another season for the ages. King Henry redefined what we thought was possible for a modern power back. In an era of running back committees and pass-first offenses, Henry proved that a dominant rusher could still be the centerpiece of an NFL offense. At 6'3" and 247 pounds, he brought a level of physicality that wore down defenses over 4 quarters, getting stronger as games went on while defenders grew weary of trying to tackle him. His path to 100 touchdowns has been marked by historic performances, from his 2,000-yard season in 2020 to his signature stiff arms that became the stuff of highlight reels. What makes his achievement even more remarkable is that he's still adding to his legacy. While other backs slow down with age, Henry continues to defy time, punishing defenders and breaking long runs with the same combination of power and speed that made him one of football's most unique talents. Will Derrick Henry be the last member of this exclusive club for a while? Looking at today's NFL, it's hard to imagine anyone joining him anytime soon. The 100 touchdown club might remain at 10 members for quite some time, and in many ways, this makes the achievement even more remarkable.